Keepin' It Green. I'm your host, Debbie Klughers, and today I have with me two very special guests. I have Mr. Christopher Gervais. He's the founder and executive director of the Wildlife Conservation Film Festivals, Wildlife Film Festivals. You show conservation films all across the country, wildlife in particular.
We do, yes.
And you're out here promoting and showing and sharing with us all the good work that you and your filmmakers have been doing for the past year. You're out in Sag Harbor this year.
Yeah, we have a film festival every year in Sag Harbor, the third weekend in September at the Bay Street Theater, and it is an annual event, and anyone who wants to come and see the films or get involved in our committee, which we meet year-round, preparing for the film festival, because it is a year-long process that it takes us to plan this event.
Absolutely, and you plan more than one.
We do. We have a film festival in the Washington, D.C. area, the National Wildlife Conservation Film Festival. We did one in May in Denver, the Rocky Mountain Wildlife Conservation Film Festival, and we have others planned. We're looking into venues that may include Miami and Los Angeles for probably late 2012 into 2013.
Wonderful. Good job. Thank you.
Thank you
for bringing these issues to the public.
Thank you for having me today.
And they're films that have never been seen before.
Most have not. No, most are by independent filmmakers, and they're not something that you would see in a theater or at other film festivals, and most of them you will not see on any networks such as Discovery or Animal Planet.
Not yet.
Not yet. Perhaps some will, but some are feature films. Others are short, which could be anywhere from a few minutes to 5, 10, 15 minutes. So films like that generally are not on a network because they're too short, but they still have a great educational and cultural message to not just children but to adults.
And you also have young adults also being promoted in some of your films.
We actually have some films this year that are designed specifically for elementary and middle school children. We have a great film called Turning the Tide, which was produced by Kathleen Firth, who is actually a professor at Harvard University.
Wow. And
she'll be here this year for the film festival. And that film was specifically designed to educate young children about the ocean and its plight.
Wonderful.
And we also have some young filmmakers who have produced films. We had a student from Pearson High School right here in the Hamptons who produced a film that we showed last year
called
was
Paul?
Paul,
Yeah,
Vanishing Wildlife of the East End. And
it's a great film.
Yeah, it was a wonderful film. It was his first film, and he showed his talent by producing that film, and he's got a bright future by continuing to making films of that quality.
Very good. And you brought with you, would you like to introduce
I brought another
next guest?
Extremely talented filmmaker, Erin from Keepin Films, and she did an extraordinary film on whale sharks, and
hence the title of our show.
Hence the title of our show.
I'm not a whale, I'm a shark, so hi.
Hi.
Thank you for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Tell us about your film and how you got involved in filmmaking, because that's pretty interesting.
Well, I got involved with filmmaking. I was a photojournalist, and I've always been interested in film and photography. And I joined the union in Los Angeles, and I worked after being a photojournalist as a camera truck driver and a camera PA.
Wow.
And started my career over again.
Wow.
And unrelated, I was on an assignment in the Philippines when I came across the whale sharks that were being exported. And I was motivated to do a documentary film about it, and that became my first film.
Now, what were they being exported for?
Mainly their fins, their large fins for shark fin soup, but also some of the meat is known as the white tofu of Asia.
Wow.
And I can show you later in a photograph what that looks like.
Okay, and you brought a couple of clips with you. Do you want to go to the first clip?
Yeah.
Okay, maybe do you want to set that up a little bit?
Okay, so the first clip is the introduction to the film, and it's with William Shatner, and he's talking about looking for sharks in the Sea of Cortez in Baja, Mexico. And so we're looking for a shark named Nacho, the whale shark, and then he's going to talk a little bit about whale sharks and what they are.
How did you get William Shatner to star in your film?
Should we go to the clip first?
Sure, let's go to the clip.
Okay.
There he is right now. He's waiting for him.
He's waiting. Okay.
What an extraordinary moment for me in my life. These animals are so benign. They are so friendly. They are so open to communication.
We enter the water in the shark's domain. It's only the name shark that scares you, and to kill them without knowing anything about them is reckless. There are too many people who want to taste the shark fin soup, and there aren't enough sharks to go around. These whale sharks are part of the web of life, and when you break that web of life, that web begins to unravel, and it affects everything connected with life. And that's us, folks.
Tell us about what was going on there with those guys diving in like that.
Well, this film is unique in many ways because, you know, you can start out with a script or a storyboard and have some ideas about what the project would be about. With the whale shark hunters, I was inspired to make a film about the hunting of the whale sharks, anticipating and hoping that that would bring awareness to the fact that these large sharks were being hunted for their fins and, in some regard, their meat. And while we were making the film, it became a political football in the Philippines. And so we became part of the story. And so to document ourselves as part of the story was really interesting and challenging at the same time. And the story didn't end there. So we made an agreement to work with the whale shark hunters in the Philippines and asked them if they would be interested in learning to tag the sharks and doing ecotourism in their region instead of hunting the sharks. The whale shark hunters had only been hunting sharks since the 1940s or 50s, somewhere in there, when big business came from Manila to their village in Mindanao and asked them if they would hunt the whale sharks for their fins for export. Wow. We didn't know that at the time, the full story, because I call it the yes-no situation sometimes in third world countries, that people are very eager to tell you, yes, yes, this is the case, no, yes, no, you know, as you're nodding with them. So sometimes it can be challenging to find out what's really happening. So the hunters agreed right there on the spot, yes, and they all signed a petition that they would form a group to be the Whale Shark Spotters Association instead of the Whale Shark Hunters. Wow. I left and came back with a film crew with the permission of the governor of Mindanao at the time. And when I arrived in the Philippines, I was met by a very large press conference, and she announced her support for the whales. So back at this time as well, very little was known about the whale sharks, or that whale sharks were even a coveted property in the Philippines. They were hunted at about 350 plus a year. And at the time, it was thought that it takes about 60 years for them to reach, or I'm sorry, 30 years for them to reach maturity. Okay. So I can go on about this part, but let me interrupt myself by saying what you just saw. Do you want me to go back to that part?
Sure.
Okay. So the clip that you just saw was a year later, I got William Shatner involved through a man named Michael Tobias, who's a good friend of his. And he showed him the project that I had to date. And William Shatner was interested in making contact with the whale sharks and swimming with them. So I took him to Mexico. And he's opening this segment. Actually, that's technically a voiceover that we shot back in the studio when he cuts away from, he's coming out of the water and he's just had contact with the whale shark. And we looked for whale sharks for the first day without finding any in Mexico, and the second day we found a whale shark. And when you're searching for them, the waters have to be very glassy, so you can find them, their lips are at the surface. They're either filtering, but they're actually technically not a filter feeder, but this is how they're bringing in the water to get the small fish and the plankton that's in the water, or they're swimming at the surface. So we shoot them with just snorkel gear. We're not even diving with them. And he had just dove in and had this experience. So he's coming out and talking about that. And then later, the rest of that segment is voiceover that I wrote, and he read in the studio that talks about what a whale shark is and what was happening there. And, it was really exciting. You know, I've had many opportunities to swim with the whale sharks. But when you haven't seen them, you know, and you're just feeling like you're out there in a boat baking in the sun, and then you come along the shark.
Very exciting.
It's very exciting, and it's very, you're anticipating having this. You want to make sure that you have your camera people in the water and your camera people topside. So there's a lot going on. But then there's also the exhilaration of like, you get in, no, you go. So that was really exciting.
Now, are they an endangered animal? Are their numbers in decline? Do we even know these types of this type of information?
Well, they are now on the endangered species list, and not all countries recognize not hunting them. So the Philippines was the first country to pass legislation to ban whale shark hunting in the Philippines, and Honduras followed, and then Mexico.
Are they listed on CITES, the Convention on International Trade of Endangered Species? Are they listed on that as well?
No, not officially.
How could they be an endangered species but not listed on CITES, so that there's no trade going on? That's kind of
yeah. Well, that's one of the areas where we work with independent researchers and other filmmakers to help document all information on whale sharks. You know, back in the day, it was very challenging to find out about a species, because if you were tenured at a specific region, then you might not be sharing your research. Sure. So there's a lot that filmmakers and photographers can do to help document the species that they're finding and share that information with independent researchers and scientists. Brad Norman helped create and use star charting technology to help determine through photography and videography if a shark had been ID'd before.
That's what I was going to ask you. They look to be very unique animals, each one with their different patterns. So it's you can recognize a specific animal from their
markings.
Markings.
Yeah,
that's
so
great.
There's no whale shark skin that's
right.
Similar. So the circles and the patterns, and there's a certain area of the shark that is taken in a photograph, and that star charting technology is used to determine if that to ID that shark. Yeah, and the whale shark was the first species that was used for, and now they use it for polar bears and other species as well.
Now you've got some pictures that can really show the viewers some what's really going on down there, and
these are some of the first photographs I took before I went back to make the film with the whale shark hunters. So this,
that's a whale shark after being hunted for the fins.
Yeah, so this shark is actually upside down, and you know, you have to take into consideration that this whole village is coming together, and at this time there were 6 sharks. They had landed on the beach, and they keep the sharks alive in the low, shallow waters until a buyer can come and determine a specific rate for that shark. So they measure its fins, and they take a look at the meat, and then they negotiate that price.
How much does a beautiful animal like this go for?
Well, there's different prices. So the fins can harness, the whale shark hunters, for a very large set of fins can make about $150 US, but a bowl of shark fin soup in Taiwan can be $1,500.
Wow.
And so we tracked. So this still was taken actually on my first trip when they had landed the 6 sharks, but. When we went back to work with the whale shark hunters, they were very nervous, and they didn't like us there so much. They allowed us to go out, but it was sort of, yes, you can, no, you can't, yes, be here at this time, and then they wouldn't be available. So we were sort of tracking them around, and at the same time trying to learn where these sharks were going, because they weren't about to, you know, give up the names of the people that were making it possible for them to feed their families. And so, So I'm going to show you some other pictures from that same time. This is the lead whale shark hunter with his wife, and you know, this is some children standing on a whale shark.
Is that animal still alive there?
They're just, yes, they're just at the final stages. So this tide is going out, and they are very efficient at what they do. You know, they're fishermen. So part of the idea at the time was that if there was another way to help them sustain themselves, you know, they weren't out there hunting because they're trying to take all the whale sharks from the ocean. This was their livelihood.
They're $150.
Right. And so I was going to tell you that when we finally did come across, I wanted to show you this one photograph here. In the same tiny little village by the sea, we were looking for about 2 weeks for this distributor because there was really only one in the Philippines.
Is that a fin?
Called Formosa. Yeah, these are whale shark fins. So they dry them, and then there was, I don't have the shot here, but it's in the film. In this man's little hut, there was a massive stack of whale shark fins, and above it was a calendar by Formosa, the name of the company that was responsible for distributing these fins, with their address. So we were then on to that, and we learned more about the distribution, and we followed them into Taiwan and Taipei, and we were invited to go into a restaurant and shoot the preparation of the whale shark fin soup. And so what they do is they take this fin and they have a cookie cutter, and they create what looks like a small fin that fits perfectly in your bowl of soup. The worst part of that for me was that, you know, we were there for most of the day shooting the preparation. They let the whole fins soak, and they become very gelatinous, and it's sort of like top ramen. So I was, all right, thank you very much, we're ready to roll. But no, we were led into a room with maybe 16 seats and asked to be seated. And they served us the whale shark fin soup that we had watched them prepare, which I was not prepared for.
Yeah, not a good scene. Would you like to? You have another clip to show, or do you have more pictures?
Oh, sure. Yeah, we can go to a clip that is in the Philippines. So this segment starts with a small village by the sea in the island of Mindanao on the northern part in the Philippines.
Okay, let's check out that clip.
Since the 1960s, whale sharks were killed in the Philippines by a small group of hunters who did not consume these 60-foot fish. This film project was not designed to stop the hunting, but to increase awareness. Ironically, as a direct result of the shooting of this film, in 1998, legislation was passed to end the killing and the exporting of whale sharks throughout the Philippines. Asian demand for shark fin soup and meat taught the hut-dwelling locals to take to the sea, slaughtering the world's largest shark and selling it to low-profile exporters in Taiwan and Singapore. A bowl of shark fin soup can cost as much as $1,500. The hunters receive about $200 per shark. The whale shark is the least studied fish to swim the planet. Hardly anyone knows what it's called. Belonging to the family of the most feared predators, mythical man-eating sharks, humans have little to fear from this gentle giant. Unfortunately, the opposite is true for the whale shark.
Now, one of the things that I'm aware of is that the shark fin soup is pretty much prestige. They serve it at weddings and such. It's not, it doesn't have great nutritional value, has little taste, that it's more of a prestige to show your wealth. And I know that I think California just passed some legislation to prohibit the sale, or is that? Yes. So
yeah, and Oregon as well. Oregon just banned whale shark fins as well. This is a wall. If you want to go to that photograph, this is a tiny little island where the average income is around $500 US per family per year.
Wow. So $150 is a fortune.
Yes, but they're not unhappy people. They were really, really joyful people. And in the photograph I'm showing here is trying to track down the hunters. Back to the story of the Philippines. This is a wall of shark fins that are drying or for sale in a little hole in the wall off a beaten path. So it was like, you know, they knew possibly that this wasn't popular, and
okay,
you know, they
well,
had to be
that's good. Then there's
careful.
a little bit of knowledge brewing down there that it's not the best thing.
Yeah. So now, since the legislation has been passed, there's been very few reports that any whale sharks have been taken, because it's hard for them to find distribution even if they do take a whale shark.
And what can people watching the show today do to help out on this cause and to help, you know, spread the knowledge around?
Yeah, well, one of the biggest help was what I was speaking about before, Brad Norman's program, ecoocean.org, and anybody that wants to donate any sightings or any footage or any information is very helpful. Like I recently learned, I think you were telling me that there's some whale shark spottings in this
right, off of
community, and that is really surprising because it is thought that whale sharks live in warm temperate waters, or they feed in those warm temperate waters.
Maybe our waters are warming across the globe.
It can be when they, you know, when there's sometimes the warmer water will be below the colder water, and then it will rise. So they might be getting lost, but it's not known because there's not a lot of plankton blooms in this area, and that's not where they eat. And it's thought that they travel across oceans deep in the ocean, and then arrive when the plankton blooms, when the moon is full.
Now, they must be pretty easy to catch as well. I mean, you know, the first clip showed the hunter just diving in with his little, probably homemade spear, and
when they're at the surface, like I was talking about in Mexico or in the Philippines, when they're eating, they're just right on the surface. So that one shot you saw was of the diver diving in, and with the weight of his body and the harpoon, he sedates the shark, and that harpoon is attached to a rope that's attached to their dugout canoe, and then a second diver dives in.
So it's not a issue. They're not compatible. You have to choose one or the other.
And science has recreated with certain, you know, with some electricity and some water.
Well, they know what the conditions are for the initial forms of life, which were very primitive. And so those are the two choices you have. So when someone like Francis Collins, and there are other scientists who think they can be made compatible, but I don't think so. When you pose the question that way and you say, you know, either there's a creator or there isn't. Either there were natural forces or there were the creative forces, and you can't have both at the same time. So that's why I think scientists like Collins are really, in a sense, living a lie. When they go into the laboratory,
sitting on the fence.
They go into well, no, it's more than that. When they go into the laboratory, they have to make a choice. Sure. They have to believe that what they're seeing is not just that there was a god in the sky, whatever you want to call him, you know, Zeus or Apollo or Jehovah or something. You have to believe that there were natural forces and causes behind that. As a scientist, you can't be an honest scientist if you believe in those things. So I think it's very dishonest. Okay, that's and you have a lot of debate about this. And you have there's an institute called the Templeton Institute, which sponsors conferences and workshops, and it's even published books on this subject of the compatibility of science and religion. And there are some scientists who believe they are incompatible. Another one, Michael Ruse, is another one. He's a very good evolutionary biologist. And I was in touch with him, and I said, my book's coming out, and I think you're wrong. I think it's incompatible. He said, oh well, I'm anxious to see what you say. I don't know if he's so anxious yet. I haven't heard from him, and there are others. But I believe that it's you make your choice. But that doesn't, in a sense, that doesn't matter. As an individual, how you live your life, the way you live your life, you can make those choices. They don't affect other people, but when you're talking about politics, and you're talking about social policy, and you're talking about ethics and social justice, okay? It just can't be arbitrary. It can't just be what one person says, whether it's Marx or Jesus, which is there was a French writer, Jean-Francois Revel, who wrote a book called Without Marx or Jesus, and you have to make your choices in the social and political arena. In your private life, you can do anything you want. If you want to go have your palm read, or you want to believe in astrology, you know, there are more dangerous things, worse things than that. You know, have a good time. Be my guest. But when it comes to social policy and politics, and also education in the universities, then you have to deal with non-arbitrary things. And evolution and ecology, nature, are non-arbitrary. And that's, I mean, you have to be irrational.
It's not a debate. It's not a debate.
It's not a debate.
Right.
It's not a debate.
It's just,
how you apply your knowledge is an ethical and social issue. I mean, and I deal, by the way, at some length in here with the issue of sociobiology. Now, the most famous practitioner or believer and writer in that is Richard Dawkins, who was a really brilliant evolutionary biologist. And then there's a man at Harvard named Steven Pinker, who's written a wonderful book called The Blank Slate. And what he does is demolish the people who have opposed sociobiology, which in fact happen to be the leftists.
Lorna, we're out of time, but fascinating stuff, and people can check out your blog spot.
Check out my website. The book is published by iUniverse. It's available through their website and other publishers, and my website is available, and I'm happy to have people get in touch with me and give me their comments.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Debbie.